Hello, Internet. It's Gino, that Guido Rieko here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And on today's show, we're going to be discussing the delightful indie platformer Pikuniku. It might look cute and cuddly, but it also has a very definitive anti-capitalist message, which somehow works. And before we discuss that, let's as always, introduce my co-hosts. Welcome, Pete Overthrow, the upper class Busby.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here to discuss a game that I picked. So oddly enough, it's right in my wheelhouse. Who would have thought? But I agree with Gino. We're going to get a lot of anti-capitalist sentiment per my, at least, mission to make this a Marxist video games podcast.
Which, oddly enough, like most video games podcasts seem to be, there's a large overlap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird. But two fun facts this week, courtesy of the anglerfish. Yeah. So the male anglerfish,
my favorite fish.
It's a great fish. The male anglerfish has the largest nostrils in proportion to its head of any animal on Earth. It has the biggest nose holes. But
that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
But there's a clip. Pete,
we lost Pete.
Pete, come back.
Never know, Bud.
You can't hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, good. So big nostrils. We're all on the same page?
Yes.
Okay. So why does the anglerfish have the biggest nostrils? Because in order to mate, what the male anglerfish does, because he is so very, very small in comparison to the female, he bites onto her side and then fuses to her body. Mm-hmm. So he ceases to be, and he becomes part of the female. So to find her down there in the deep, dark blackness, he uses his huge nose holes to follow her pheromones, then latches on and basically becomes a sperm sac attached to the side of her body. Anglerfish are weird.
Wow.
I knew that. I don't know how I found that out, but we should institute that in some other species, maybe. Possibly not this one, but, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it's always funny when you find species that the female is larger and more powerful, and thus the male has to do, like, some ridiculous nonsense to pass on genes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like most of the egg species, like birds, bugs, fish.
Yeah, because whichever... So, at least my understanding from ecology was whichever animal, be it male, female, regardless, whichever parent is going to be giving the most effort in raising the child, they tend to be the one who's allowed to be smaller or meeker or less flamboyant, because the competition is really for the person who's going to be doing all the work. And so if the male is going to be doing all the work, like with seahorses, male seahorses, I think, are more fought over by females than vice versa. But this is not my animal facts section. I'm sorry, Pete, to be encroaching on.
No, I appreciate the assist. The more animal facts, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Accurate. And that second voice you've heard before is M. Bourgeoisie Buster Palladino.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I have something for you guys. It's free money.
Oh.
What?
Free money?
It's free money.
Excellent.
I hope you guys like your free money. You're going to be drowning in coins.
I'm going to be breaking into your homes, taking some things. Don't bother me, though. I'll leave behind free money.
Yep. You won't know what to do with all the money that I give you. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, before we deal with the free money and the Pikus and the Nikus, first, just a reminder, this show is supported by Patreon. You can support us, patreon.com/deeplistens. And you can also, if you can, that would be great. Thank you. That gets you access to our exclusive Discord. Do we have anything on the Discord report?
I think we could go to the Discord report. This week on the Discord report, the biggest thing that we talked about was, once again in the food channel, we had a very long debate about pizza.
Pete, you didn't add into this. Do you think that ranch dressing on pizza is acceptable?
That's
so I generally don't eat pizza because of my cheese averseness.
You go to hell.
But were I to eat it more often, I certainly would not put ranch dressing on it. I'm anti-ranch dressing just in general.
That's a valid reason. I also am adverse to cheese, but that has never stopped me before. I literally had pizza 15 minutes before we started recording.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The
Were you
pregame of
pro or
champions.
anti-ranch?
I am on the side of ranch is an affront against God if you put it on pizza.
Very nice.
ZP, as usual, is wrong about food.
He's the worst food takes.
It's horrible. I really want to make it so ZP can see the food channel, but I know it will just bleed into all of the other places.
Yeah, we can't keep him out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And he has too many ways to tell me his bad food facts, so it would only protect other people. It wouldn't protect me at all.
Yeah.
But I did post a Twitter poll about this, and people said that ranch on pizza was a fun twist instead of an affront to God.
No.
So maybe the world is more messed up than I thought. Well, we knew that.
Mm.
We knew that. So, do we have any questions from the Discord questions section? Because we're entering feedback time. Feedback, you can get at us at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. You can hit up our comment sections or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Or now, in the Discord, we also take questions there.
Yeah, we have instituted the Game of the Week section of the Discord, where you can ask us little questions that maybe you don't need to send a whole email about. Just if you're curious about stuff about the game we're playing. We did have one question in there this week. Less a question about Pikuniku specifically and more about our tastes. This comes from Electric Viking. Thank you. How far along are you three hosts on the journey to preferring shorter games? The developers have Pikuniku at a svelte 5 hours or so.
Yeah. Pete, why don't you take this first?
Sure, I'll jump in. Pretty far along, I'd say. My main criterion isn't necessarily length, it's more chunkability. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I can, I'll play, like, it's one of my favorite games. Like
which one you cut out for a second?
Fire Emblem.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite games, right? That cuts in for like a full campaign, not short, very long. Yeah. But you can chunk it, right? You can do a couple battles maybe, and then just drop out. So I mean, I'd say I don't really. If I'm getting a game just for pleasure, just something to bang out myself, I'm usually always going for something highly chunkable.
Serving size. You like small serving sizes.
Exactly.
How about you?
I agree with that. If it is not chunkable, I would like it to be as compact an experience as possible. Just because I don't have a lot of time to do stuff. It just comes down to that. Like games for this podcast, I appreciate a good 3-4 hour game. When we were doing, I'm not going to say the title, but everyone knows what it is.
It rhymes with beer.
Beer.
Automata.
Automata. That was. How would you describe that? Hellish?
Forever. I feel like I'm still playing it.
Yeah. We have never stopped. It's just ongoing. So I could live without playing a game for 40 hours if it gets to the point in 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And I am definitely all the way down that roadmap of shorter games. Or, like you said, Pete, like short, bursty kind of serving sizes, that's fine. If I can play in 20-minute bursts, that's totally fine. But if you're going to demand long playing sessions to get any sort of progress, I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't fuck with you anymore. Like, if the minimum play time is an hour, my life is not built to have contiguous hours without interruption very often.
Yeah.
So,
if it fits nicely in my 30-minute commute into the city, more power to you.
Exactly. Like, if it fits into a commute, if it fits into, like, I'm watching a show on TV and can make progress while not paying full attention to either the game or the show, like, these are the times, these are the things that I can play. Or if it's, like, a few hours, like Butterfly Soup, and it's done, and it's almost like reading a book, that's fine. But I just can't. Like, the 40-hour epics, I just can't. Luckily, some of, like, the earlier Final Fantasy games and stuff like that, or JRPGs, the combat is so rote and repetitive that you can get through it without full brain attention.
Mm-hmm. You just zone out, and then it's done.
Exactly. But games like, for example, fucking FF13, where you need to actually pay attention to the thing even though you're not enjoying it, otherwise you'll die, that I don't enjoy. So other forms of feedback. We got an email. This email was written on it seemed to be written with like a jagged piece of tile and carved into the ground. And it says, Happy Not Monday, everyone. Welp, it sounds like Pete is once again using another game pick to spread communist propaganda. Worth mentioning, a while back when a YouTube commentator asked Pete for recommended readings about free will and communism, I responded by telling them to read The Other Perspective and suggested I Pencil by Leonard E. Reed, as well as Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman. Fuck.
Ugh,
So just saying I'm ready for you suckers this time around. Milton Friedman, fuck. But playful joshing about the political spectrum aside, let's get to brass tacks and address how this podcast is using this platform of privilege to slander my good name. I think this was scrawled by ZP. First, I ask you to develop skits, which have added a whole new dimension to your podcast. I gave you that shit, and you reward me with nothing but insults? For shame. How could one argue against me being anything but a positive influence on this podcast? Great question. All right, question time. I got another grab bag this week. To M, as Gino and I move closer to playing Final Fantasy XIV, there's something that continues to bother me about that game in particular. I understand paying homage or fan service is par for the course. That I get. However, whenever FF14 tries to graft previous Final Fantasy art aesthetics to its more grounded fantasy world, the results are usually weird. I know we've already talked about the abomination that is Kate Sith in FF14, but there are plenty of other examples of fanservice-y bullshit that either looks bad or disruptive to the surrounding world of FF14. Is this something one gets used to, or a common complaint within the community? M.
I mean, he didn't give any examples besides Kate Sith, right?
No, he didn't. But I think that Gold Saucer is a thing there, too.
I mean, you barely see the outside of the Golden Saucer. The aesthetic inside is like, it's just a casino. Like,
but it doesn't look like FF7.
Yeah, no, it's not the same Golden Saucer. It is a homage.
There is a Krill also, or Kryl, but I think that Kryl is not the same Kryl as the FF5 Kryl.
Yeah, no. Kryl in Final Fantasy XIV is a Lalafell, which is the short race, and not at all representative of FF5's Kryl. What else? Like, there's a lot of bosses that overlap. Like, the Raid series later on has, like, Kefka and Exdeath. But, yeah, they're pretty good fights, actually. And there's a reason that they can exist in the world. But the art style wasn't exactly, like, jarring or anything. So I think you'll get past it pretty quickly.
Okay. To Pete, After reviewing some previous material, I realized you never were told the bad NBA Twitter hot takes from 2 podcasts ago. So here's probably the worst of the bunch, though the one saying that they take Otto Porter over Kawhi Leonard is pretty funny in hindsight. Here's the tweet. Kevin Durant is not unguardable. In fact, Durant is overrated as a number 1 option. If he were number 1 on a team, he would struggle to get touches late. Teams would double him. He would be neutralized. It has happened before. Remember, he can't create off the dribble. Inside, he's too light to post up low. On the Warriors, these flaws are just masked.
I mean, I agree, actually, with this hot take, but only if it's newly shattered Achilles, Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
so,
when he had 2 functional legs, yes. None of these things were true.
If you're talking about him at this precise moment, maybe. Any other moment, he's probably the greatest offensive force in the history of the league.
Yeah. The best part about this comment is that all of the things that they are critiquing are literally the things he's the best in the world at.
Yeah.
Like creating one-on-one, getting touches regardless of double teams, scoring over double teams. He's 7... We don't need to... It's not worth it. It's not worth my breath.
It's very wrong.
And then to Gino, I want to affirm for the record, my pizza tier list. Fuck. Before you use it on the podcast to make me sound like some sort faux clown. So I'm reading that verbatim. Some sort faux clown. That's how he wrote it. Who knows if he meant of clown, but he wrote faux clown. My favorite sources of pizza are 1, Papa Murphy's. Their chicken, bacon, artichoke delight is my favorite pizza in human history because it comes on a thin crust. If you cook it longer, it becomes a crispy cracker with charred artichokes and caramelized bacon bits. Never mind. California Pizza Kitchen, yes, it's pricey, but it's also popularized barbecue sauce on pizza, and they still have one of the best barbecue chicken pizzas in the world. 3, Little Caesars. Their hot and ready is $5. If you want to talk about food for the proletariat, there you go. 4, Red Baron Frozen. Don't diss their mini French bread microwavable pizza game. That shit is straight fire and carried me through college. And 5, Domino's. They have improved significantly and are one of the few that can deliver in my neighborhood. Which, it's always a good sign when you have an ad campaign as a company that says, our food is less fucked now.
But that guy can fold those boxes so damn fast, you know?
He can, but it's just watching the ad campaigns for the new Domino's pizzas. They're like, we've heard, we've done surveys, the pizza's less bad now. Please try us again. Please. And they're totally, it's serviceable pizza for a low price. So I think we've already explained our pizza opinions on ZP's Pizza Tastes. They're bad. This list seems not terrible. Most of these seem fine. In the realm of bad pizza. Like, once you accept that this is all going to be chains and bad pizza, it's fine.
Here's the problem, ZP. You were talking to New Yorkers, for one, so we will already not budge on pizza. And, Pete, are you Italian?
No, Polish. So if pierogies ever come up, I'll have a lot of hard opinions on them.
Gotcha. Well, 2 Italians... we're not going to budge on our pizza stance, I think.
No. You can't move us.
It's a hard sell, yeah. But keep trying.
No, don't. Give up. It's not worth it. All right. Well, that's our feedback for the week. Thank you, everyone who wrote in, and thank you, listeners who are continuing to send things in. Please do send in more. We love to take your questions. Which means it's now time for...
Oh. What is happening?
Did Vincent Price just show up? What's going on?
Magic. It's time for magic.
It's magic time.
It's magic time.
You seen those new Commander decks?
Oh, man. I have seen... No, I haven't, but at some point I will.
Mm-mm. Is that the magic we're talking about? Or
no.
Okay.
It's time for close-up magic.
Oh, I see.
All right. Look at my hands.
They're great hands.
You sure have hands.
They're empty, are they not?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Nothing up my sleeve?
You're not even wearing sleeves.
Excellent. Does anyone here like birds?
Love them. They're my favorite things.
Great. I clap my hands together. And what is this in the palm of my hand but a dove? A lovely dove.
Whoa. How'd you do that?
Magic.
He's not even wearing sleeves.
Magic.
Did you have that in your hands this whole time?
No. It takes flight. It's majestic. Welcome to Magic.
That was a great track.
Yeah, I know. And the
Well
sickest
done.
thing is, that dove, it's a mourning dove. It's hard to buy those. You need to catch them. You can't. So it's also kind of sad, in a way. It was like a wild creature, and I captured it for a trick. And I'm sorry about that. It was kind of a cheap move on my part. I tore up a family just to make an impression, but it was cooler, though, right? Than if it was just like a regular white dove.
Cool.
Definitely cool, yeah.
Excellent. Yep, the suffering made it funnier. Excellent. So, without further ado, it's time to talk about Pikuniku. And it's a new paradigm, folks. I've made a lesson plan.
We actually know what we're going to talk about this time.
We know what we're going to talk about. This is a new paradigm. Hashtag new meta. Let's talk about Pikuniku. And first, let's start the way we always do. Someone, what's Pikuniku?
I guess, yeah, this is me. It's my game. I'll do the intro. So, Pikuniku is the story of a hero, a revolutionary that comes down from the mountains to shatter the social paradigm. So, Pikuniku is a small red blob with legs, I guess is the best way to describe it, who comes down from the mountains and goes on zany adventures and ultimately, I mean, I guess we can just say the whole thing, ultimately ends up fighting Mr. Sunshine, the rogue tycoon trying to take over all the lands. Good? That's most of it, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a capitalist system on the island that is tearing the island apart, and Piku, the little ball with legs, is unwittingly or wittingly fighting against this power. And so, that's kind of the journey throughout the game. You deal with a variety of enemies, trying to save the island. As always, there'll be spoilers from here on out. And it's mostly a platformer in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, a couple puzzles here or there, but yeah, for the most part.
And that kind of led me to thinking, like, the strong anti-capitalist message that this game has. The aesthetic that it chooses, I wonder how it first builds that aesthetic, and then how does that aesthetic play into its central message. So, something I noticed, this game uses very floaty physics, right? When you jump with Piku, he's a bit hard to control. You can jump and then hit a button to retract his legs and turn him into a little ball. And much of the game's platforming kind of involves you jumping, retracting your legs so you get more air control and move slightly quicker. But that's kind of the main mechanic. And Piku actually has two little legs, two kind of stick legs. And if you land on certain objects, he will and hold in a direction gently, he'll kind of walk and like roll objects along, like if he's standing on a barrel. If you land on objects oddly, where his legs aren't touching the ground, he'll just kind of slide off of them. And it has this kind of very floaty physics system that it employs. Why do you think that they use that sort of physics? And what do you think those physics impart on the game? Why choose those specific physics?
I think it's largely an extension of his legs. Like, I could watch Piku's legs move all day long. They're just sort of like zany and out there, and he's always kicking and moving, and his knees bend weird. It's sort of hard to describe. You just sort of have to see it. But I think they started with the notion like, oh, this would be a really funny way to move, and then the physics just sort of evolved from there. Like, what would the world look like if this was the way this guy's legs operated? Seems like a backwards way to do it, but I think that's how important this cool leg movement was to this game.
I agree with that. It seems like sort of a tech demo where you're like just messing around with how physics work, and then you get this like silly little dude who can kick and jump and bounce. You're like, I think we can make a game out of this, and then you just lean into it. It's very like sort of casual game design. go with what works, what feels good.
It might be too, like, this sort of, it reminded me almost of The Life of Brian. Have you guys ever seen The Life of Brian?
Not in a long time.
Right. It's like an old Monty Python movie where this guy sort of gets, like, co-op.
Mm.
Yeah, he gets, like, co-opted as the Messiah.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like one of those, like, everybody else thinks you're, like, the hero, but you're really not. So I think that the floaty physics sort of operates within that paradigm. That, like, Piku isn't really, like, he doesn't really have it all together. So, like, he's meant to move haphazardly. So, like, that's how the world operates, and he's just sort of co-opted into this hero role that he, like, sort of somehow bumbles his way through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that the physics also kind of adds to the sense of zaniness of the overall story. Like, by having the physics be so floaty, you also have all the other characters of the world operating in that same literal physical space and with those same weights. So when other characters have to get around obstacles, Piku, when he kind of lands on his head and then kind of rotates over so that his legs touch the ground, it's not like your legs are always facing the ground. When you jump and, like, rotate, his legs just kind of fly over his head.
Mm-hmm.
And other characters operate that way too. So even characters that have more shape and more form to them, like, I think the first creatures you encounter have, like, kind of bulbous pear-looking bodies with little legs coming off of them.
Yeah, and, like, whiskers or something.
Yeah, and whiskers. And when they jump over things, they also have to kind of do a full somersault over them. And if they don't make the full jump, they'll just, like, land on their head and roll over. And the whole world operates in a space where it's completely 2D, and the only way to get around things is to go over them somersaulting. Mm-hmm. There's no forward and back or anything like that. And it leads to the whole world having this general sense of airiness and lightness that I think, with the colors that they choose, the color palette is very bright, makes the overall, just adds to a sense of kind of safety and happiness that the message of the game kind of contrasts with, I think. But I think it almost feels like modern cartoons, a lot of modern cartoons on, like, Cartoon Network, you might see them, or Nickelodeon, where they're dealing with more adult topics or more difficult topics, but the aesthetic is still light and airy and happy. So you can kind of process them, or you can make it more attractive for kids and people who are looking for something a little bit more upbeat, even if you're going to have something a little bit difficult inside. I think things like Adventure Time, Steven Universe, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it fits within that structure, sure.
All right, so do you think that these aesthetics that we've just discussed help reinforce the game's environmentalist and anti-capitalist message? Because early on in the game, Mr. Sunshine, this little cloud creature, offers everyone free money, and he says that he's giving you free money, don't worry about it, and he's going to have some robot buddies that are going to come and take junk away from your town. So don't disrupt the robots. He'll give you free money. Don't worry about anything. Because the Sunshine Corporation is going to take care of everyone. And every place you go to, you find his robots stealing things that seem pretty important. Like, in one town, they're stealing corn, paying for corn.
Mm-hmm.
One section, they're taking trees. One section, they're taking water out of a lake. And in all these cases, they're taking vital resources, and the thing that they are giving in return is this money that has almost no purpose in the world.
Yeah. The various places that we go have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. So it just, yeah, I guess they just throw it out into the world and then we pick it up and then we don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a very sort of classically Marxist theory of value. It's like Marx's whole idea was that value derives from labor time, basically. So, like, if a jacket costs $50, that's because $50 worth of labor time is invested in that jacket. So this creates a problem for natural resources, right? Like, trees have no labor value associated with them, at least until they become lumber. You know, same with water. It's just there. there's no labor in creating it. So here it operates in the same way, right? Like if you have a labor time-based system of value, then resources are worthless, so you might as well trade them for money, which is just the physical incarnation of labor time.
Yeah, except in this world, there is no economy, really. Everyone's subsisting on whatever happens to grow in their region of the world, and they're fine with it. Like, they have towns, they have functioning societies without an economy that we recognize. There seems to be some bartering between the towns, like wood gets sent from the wood town in exchange for corn, but they don't have a traditional market in the way that we would envision it. And so adding money to this system actually accomplishes nothing, and it's the most cartoonish version of it as well. Like, we're just raining money from the sky. There are no shops. There's nothing to buy of value. The only shop in the game sells you cosmetic goods, like glasses. That's pretty much it. And they only set up a shop because... Actually, no, there's two shops. One shop is selling monster-related goods, and you can't actually buy from it. And there's another shop that's selling sunglasses and cosmetics. And they only exist as stores because Mr. Sunshine has introduced money into this world, essentially. They are created to take advantage of this new commodity that's being traded, but it's not like you can spend that money to get food or like you can spend that money to get anything of use. It's all nonsense, which I think plays into this, having this kind of light and zany aesthetic. If you're going to have the money be the most cartoonishly ridiculous interpretation of money, where it has no grounding in the real world, how money functions at all, better to have the world be unrecognizably whimsical as well.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's grotesque.
Yeah, it also helps that it's like most reductive version of money. Like, it's just gold coins. There's no, like, it's not... what am I trying to say?
Yeah, it would have been... It would have been almost more interesting if Mr. Sunshine tried to establish like a fiat currency, like U.S. dollars, if it were just backed by the Sunshine Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question would have been like, all right, so like, why does everybody trust Mr. Sunshine to establish their own currency? But I don't think the inhabitants of Pikuniku's world would have thought it through that deeply. They would have just like, oh, it's money, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's basically what he did. Every single coin has the Sunshine Corporation logo on it. He basically established a fiat currency. It's just that, much like Bitcoin and other such currencies, there's nothing... If you can't buy anything good with it, then who cares if it's money, right? Like, if there's no purchasing power behind the currency, then it's just a way to trade things. Like, it might as well be marbles or whatever you want to trade, right? A currency is only as good as what it can purchase. And this currency can only purchase sunglasses, and that's it. Sunglasses, X-ray specs, and like a postcard, I think, are the only things you can buy in the game, which leads to the gameplay being a bit odd because there's these coins all over the place, like a Mario homage. And in Mario, it's not like you can spend the coins either. So in a way, it makes the metaphor more explicit than in Mario, right? Like, this is actually money. Whereas in Mario, the coins... You collect them because they're coins, but nothing in the Mario universe says these coins are worth a damn in most cases. There's some games that do care about the coins.
You get a 1-up or a star in certain ones, but not like the early ones, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the fact that they're coins, the fact that they are represented as money doesn't mean anything outside of like the Mario Party games in most cases. So this game actually makes the coin and the fact that it's money explicit, but like the Mario games, they don't have anything good to do with the money. So you're collecting it to make a number go higher, for the most part. Did everyone get enough coins to like buy all the things in the store?
Yeah, I bought all the sunglasses. You can buy X-ray sunglasses. As far as I could tell, there's no need for them. They don't seem to do anything besides like a color swap.
Yeah, I
Is
didn't
that
find
what those were? I never
Yeah.
actually went back to pick those up.
Yeah, you know, for anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't scour the world to see if the X-ray specs revealed something. but they looked cool.
I just like the regular sunglasses. I think I ran around with the ones you have to get.
Did you guys ever get arms?
Yes, it's awesome.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
you can get arms?
If you find the golden tooth of the silver frog and bring it to this like wizard, he gives you arms. The arms don't do anything; they just flop around uselessly.
Yeah, you meet a wizard who says, I'm going to grant you your deepest wish if you can get me the golden tooth of a silver frog. And you get that from, like, a challenge room.
Yeah, I got that. I just didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I found the wizard later. He's at the top of the first village you get to. You kind of have to jump up into the clouds, and he's kind of up there. You need to actually know, there's a section in a place in that village, a little house, where there's a bunch of flowers, and one of the flowers won't grow. And once you have the water hat, you can water that flower, and then it will cause a giant beanstalk to grow up. You climb the beanstalk, there's a wizard up there, and he wants the tooth, and once you give it to him, he's like, oh, fuck, what do you want? I know what you want. I know what you want. Arms.
And they are phenomenal. Worth it 100%.
Yeah, and all the sections where you're basically bionic commando, swinging around with your legs, super great. So what do we make of Mr. Sunshine's motivations and everything he's all about? You know, is he supposed to be a sympathetic, flawed villain or just a generic cartoon bad guy?
Do you have an argument for him being sympathetic?
Yes. So
I would love to hear it.
When we get to the volcano section, right, when you're in the section where you're dealing with the worms underground, you burrow into this old abandoned village. That seems to have been destroyed by magma. And the villagers still there because they were killed by lava. So they're...
Yeah, it's very Pompeii, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Pompeii village where everyone's been turned to stone. And if you notice, all of the villagers there look like Mr. Sunshine. They are all shaped like him. So it seems that he's the last survivor of an entire civilization that lived underground in this volcano. That were all murdered. Or not murdered, necessarily. They were all killed by the volcano erupting. Because they were digging their way through... I think they were digging out a subway, and it caused the volcano to erupt. Or they were digging a tunnel, and it caused the volcano to erupt and kill everyone. So he seems to be... And all of the robots that he makes are shaped like himself. They're shaped like villagers. So it seems like he might be trying to recreate... the world he had underground.
So under that logic, when he's trying to combine later in the game the pear people and the triangle people, it's in order to recreate the village, family, clan, whatever that he lost.
Yeah.
Damn, that is sympathetic.
I didn't put any of that together when I was playing. But now that you say it, it makes a lot of sense.
So it seems like he was trying to create, like, he made robots to support him, but they're robots. Though it's funny that the robots have personalities and seem to have sentience and immediately turn on him when they realize that they should be getting paid.
Yeah. Well, one of them gets paid and the other one doesn't, which I think this is why, not that this is important here, but I think this is why there's a social taboo against discussing your salaries. Because I think if we all had information about everything other people was making, we'd be more likely to rise up in the class struggle. I'd just like to throw that out.
You're not wrong. I've
Agreed.
seen it happen.
Yeah,
I've seen what happens when coworkers find out that like a newer person with less experience is getting paid more than them. They don't like it one bit.
Yes. Gino, I think your argument's a compelling one. Like M, I did not put it together either, but there would still beg the question of why he needs to wipe everything out with the volcano first. Like, why not just create the robots and rebuild the village?
Yeah, so at first he builds the robots. The robots look like his people, but they aren't fully... I don't want to say human. They don't seem to be complete people. They're programmed, you know. They've got a little bit of personality, but they don't really interact in the way a living person would. And so he wants to study the other the other races on this island and turn them into a super, like the genus, like not genus, the like germ or genesis for his robots and make them more complete. But he's a shitty programmer. So the monster he creates just is terrible. It's this terrible creature. And so I think that his idea is he wants... It's megalomaniacal? Megalomaniacal?
Yes.
That's the one. It's megalomaniacal. It's not... He's definitely not a hero here. But I think they've at least built the structure for him to be a flawed villain who's trying to recreate a world that he's lost, but with him on top. And he says, like, the world that I want to create is... Let me see if I can get the quote. Perfect people in my perfect city. Sometimes to build something, you have to destroy what's already there first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm compelled by your argument, Gino. There is, like, he's definitely just sort of psychotic, too, because when he gets shot into space, he immediately starts thinking about colonizing space as well. It's like, well, failed on this world, let's try the next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's definitely the sense that everything he's doing, he's the villain. He is meant to be stopped. But I thought it was interesting that in this game that seems to be operating on such a didactic level where everything is just obviously what it stands for. There's an uprising. You are fighting against these robots that are trying to clear cut the forest and drain the lakes so that they can create a plastered... Like, he's going to erupt a volcano to destroy an entire island so that he can populate it with shitty robots that will follow him. Like, it's so clearly ridiculous that when they had a section where there were clearly the remains of everyone he ever knew, I found it interesting, right? That they would even try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my thought was more, it reminded me of two things. One is the way a whole bunch of rich people are building basically missile bunkers and buying land in New Zealand to escape the coming apocalypse. And the other one is...
Oh no, where'd he go?
Going again?
They took him out.
Okay.
What
the
happened?
other one is?
The other one is Jeff Bezos' obsession with Mars. That he's like, oh, we've ruined this planet. There's nothing we can do about that. On to the next one.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting that, like in the real world, the person who's ruining the planet is Mr. Sunshine himself. As he makes the island more uninhabitable, he's like, well, we're going to need to make a new one with my preferred people populating it and with me in control. That's the only solution, really, when you think about it. Otherwise, we're going to run out of food, and we're going to run out of wood, and we're going to run out of water. But who's getting rid of the food and the water? Who's polluting all of it?
It's a mystery.
Sunshine.
He does have a great theme song, though.
Yeah.
And it's great at the beginning of the game where he's like, take the free money, and if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe this guy. And then there's a tiny Mr. Sunshine under his hat.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, so I think that the commentary here, for as simple as it is in some ways, I think it's effective because of its simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were teaching like a course on like how do I want to put this, on like the ideology of resisting capitalism, like you could cram a whole bunch of stuff into this. Like I was just sort of like ticking theories off the boxes. So like one of the big ones is like, in order to resist the system, the resistance must come from outside of it, because the system co-ops everything within it. So like Piku comes from outside the system in order to shake things up, in the same way that like the most marginalized are the most likely to lead the rebellion. The problem is the system slowly and slowly just takes over more and more until all those exterior places are neutralized. Fortunately, he came from a sealed off cave, but I mean, give Mr. Sunshine long enough, he would have destroyed that exterior place too, until he took over everything.
Yep. Even the worms under the ground are not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other one, right? You start mentioning the worms, then you can bring in issues of slow violence. The idea that the environmental ravages of capitalism or just sort of colonization, whatever, are borne by the most vulnerable and the most, again, marginalized.
And forgotten.
So, like, yeah, exactly, right? So, like, climate change isn't affecting the people who are creating the climate change. It's swamping, like, well, right now, islands in the Pacific that really have, like, nothing to do about all this. So it's a question of externalities, if you want to put it in the language of economics.
Yeah, and I like that the game gets, for the worms, there's the unintended slow violence where the lake being drained is preventing water that used to drip from the bottom of the lake into a subterranean cave. That water is no longer coming, so the worms are starting to dehydrate. But also there's a worm that goes out to find other sources of water, and he finds polluted water or like radioactive waste and drinks that and becomes engorged and bioluminescent, which I think has a nice 1-2 punch, right? They are draining the safe water and then also pumping toxic water at the same time. Kind of doubly screwing over this, tiny underground society of little black worms.
Yeah. It was almost an interesting story. I mean, if it had worked out for him drinking a toxic waste, it would have.
If he got superpowers?
Yeah, right. Like, if he was just like, oh, it turns out this is fine. It would have been an interesting question of, like, resilience. Like, how these sort of smaller groups basically co-opt waste products or exterior processes of the production system to survive. Like, it reminds me, I think the New Yorker did a story on this shore, this beach, I think it was in India, where they broke down old container ships. And it was basically an operation of taking refuse, right, flotsam, and tearing it down and tearing it down and tearing it down until you're finally able to do something with it again. Of course, the problem was it was both environmentally disastrous and cripplingly dangerous for everyone involved, in the same way that, like, trying to drink toxic waste might be.
Sure. Though I will say the worm does come back at the end of the game. He is critical to defeating Mr. Sunshine.
True. And his bloated, toxic, wasted body is the most important part.
Exactly.
So really, toxic waste is good?
It definitely makes a strong, sturdy platform for you to jump on.
That's true.
No one would dispute that.
Mm-hmm.
And this leads me to kind of the final ultimate conclusion of the game, because after you defeat Mr. Sunshine and shoot him into space, you're briefly transported to what appears to be some sort of room outside of time and space?
Yeah, like you meet a ghost at the very beginning who starts you on your whole journey, and then he comes back around and creates this, I don't know, room, like you said, basically, this room from nowhere.
Yeah, this robot room with a face, and it talks to you, and it gives you a score?
So what was your guys' score? Do you remember?
I got a 4.3.
I got 1.6.
I got 1.6 as well. So there are multiple possible scores.
That's interesting.
I wonder if what it's connected to.
I don't know either. I tried to look online, and I didn't see anyone put together if it was based on completeness or how that score was calculated. But that robot's just like, or the room talks to you and says, here's your score, and then it just drops you back into the world. And I don't know what to do with that. Does anyone know what to do with that?
I mean, if you wanted, I could make a guess. So if you wanted to do Fukuyama, I think his first name's Francis. Does anyone know?
I think so.
So Francis Fukuyama.
Is that the end of the world, end of history guy? Yeah, yes.
So his argument would be so Piku's just thrust back into this world with a meaningless score and no sort of, beyond getting rid of Mr. Sunshine, no sense of real forward momentum, because there is no forward momentum. Like, capitalism is the teleology. It's the end. We've arrived, and things aren't changing. I don't really like that. That seems very pessimistic to me, but considering there aren't any new sort of revolutionary systems, it might not be wrong.
Oh. Pete got silenced by Francis Fukuyama.
Damn, Francis.
They got him.
They got him.
Did they get my point about history?
Yes, we did.
All right, that was all the whole thing. I said it might not be wrong, which is unfortunate.
I'm going to make sure that is in fact his name. Pete, can you make that? Can you check if that's in fact his name?
I'll double check. I know it's Fukuyama. I will look up his first name.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's interesting because if you boot the game up after you see the credits, you actually can continue playing, and the world will continue on from the point of you defeating Mr. Sunshine. So I went back to all the villages after beating the game, and the volcano went off, so the first village is covered in popcorn. The second village has begun trading with the first village, popcorn for wood. All of society seems to be getting along just fine without Mr. Sunshine. And, like, the robots are now, they started a company to build things, and they're free, and they have a labor union.
Yeah.
So the world actually, you can go back into the world. What?
Mm-hmm.
So it is Francis.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so the world actually does continue and resets itself. It's no longer kind of this dystopian capitalist nightmare, and now is more of, in a system with no capital, it's hard to describe what's going on. It's not really bartering either. Like,
it's communism, really. I mean, everybody's just sort of share alike, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of communism, but it's almost anarcho-communism.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no centralized government.
Yeah.
But they seem to all enjoy it just fine.
Seems to work for them.
There's an interesting question to ask here, now that I know that the robots unionize at the very end. Between, I don't know what the dichotomy is, like between direct action, which is what Piku does when he punts Mr. Sunshine into space, and we'll just call him systemic action, so operating within the political and economic system at hand. So, like, the argument would be like, okay, what do you do? Are you like Luddites? Do you smash the machines? Or do you try to work through the political system and vote and legislate and regulate the system? The question is, if the political system is also part of the economic system, sort of base and superstructure, then all the voting in the world isn't going to help you.
Yeah.
So is it Pikuniku punting Mr. Sunshine into space that allows the union to even operate in the first place? Is direct action necessary before you can do systemic?
I think that in the case of this game, oddly enough, had the robots been unionized earlier on in the process, it would have stopped Mr. Sunshine in his tracks. Now that we know that the robots have enough free will to actually disobey his orders, had they just not created a giant volcano death machine for him, because he can't do anything by himself, none of these kind of world-destroying plans would have been set into motion at all. So if you had unionized them before they had created a death machine, you could have kind of worked within the system. But by the time he's engineered a volcano to destroy an island and has created some sort of genetically engineered mechano being, it's a bit too late for working within the system, and you need to punt him into space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the rub, isn't it? You know, like, we don't recognize the flaws in the system until the system's already so established that it's now running us instead of the other way around.
Yeah. You never know when the slope actually became slippery. Was it when he was harvesting the water and all the corn? Was it when he was kidnapping people to study their ways and their little quirks so that he could make a mechano being? Was it when he bought the land under the volcano? You know, we'll never know when it became too big to stop.
Yeah, the old inconvenience. The term d'art would be reification. That's the idea that, like, the system assumes its own sort of power and agency above the people who create it. It seems as if it has always existed and always will.
Yeah, and it's important to mention, like, the Sunshine Corporation, as far as I can tell, is basically a bunch of robots, Mr. Sunshine, and a few billboards and some spy cameras. Like, there's no there. It just exists for nefarious schemes.
Nice.
They seem to only make gold coins and destruction. That's it.
Did you guys see the one billboard that was just eyes?
Yes.
Was that a Great Gatsby thing? Like a
I thought
Dr.
it was.
J. Ecclebird? But, like, I didn't, like, know what the connection was.
I thought it was a Gatsby thing, but I thought it might be similar to the end of the game, just kind of a random reference.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. I appreciated it, but I didn't see any larger significance.
What is this?
Have you ever read The Great Gatsby?
Yeah.
So,
the billboards.
Yeah, that's just the optometrist and the eyes looking out. There was one, I mean, they're cartoon eyes, so it's just two dots and eyebrows. But that's the whole billboard.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And I think also it's meant to be kind of a Big Brother 1984?
Yes.
Sort of.
You guys, you ever just like stand around and notice that there's like cameras coming out of them?
Yeah.
Oh, out of the trees? Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that.
Out of the trees and the billboards.
Yeah.
Really?
Cameras
the
will come
billboards?
out of them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's also supposed to be a Big Brother sort of thing, where he's constantly watching you. You know, but not in a creepy way.
No, like he's just seeing what's going on. He's curious.
Not to be weird or anything, just interested in what you're up to.
Yeah, so I think that's all I've got on Pikuniku. Was there anything that y'all wanted to discuss that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, we just gave basically a crash course in, like, most of Marxist resistance theory, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
So I guess this game actually does a pretty good job of it in, like, 3 to 5 hours. This game and Wuppo, I think, are companion pieces.
I still gotta play Wuppo.
Yeah, well, really it's cool. It's nice.
You really need to see the socialist city in Wuppo. Because, one, there's a socialist city in Wuppo.
Okay.
At all. Two, that game has an entire theme park that you can go to that you do not ever have to go to, but the rides function.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, that game's wild. You should play Wuppo. Everyone,
yeah,
it's very cheap. You should play Wuppo. It's weird.
Once again, playing a different game, we've come to the conclusion of you should play Wuppo. What was the first one that we decided you should play Wuppo?
Iconoclasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It was.
No, I think that Pikuniku covers similar topics better than Iconoclast too. So if you were going to play Iconoclast, maybe play Wuppo or Pikuniku.
Hmm.
My only concern with some of this is like because it's so fanciful and whimsical that like if you hadn't done the background reading already, it might not work as well.
Yeah, I could see that. And that's why in the beginning, I really wanted to talk about the light and the whimsy, like why go this way when the critique that you're writing is so biting. But I think that it's a case where you want to lure people in with the honey, and then it turns out, oops, there's a lot of vinegar here too.
Mm-hmm. Make it, palatable, and then you can present whatever you want to.
Exactly. So I think that's it for Pikuniku. If you have any feedback, you can do so. You can send it in at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And you can support us and support the show at patreon.com/deeplistens. It's my turn to pick again.
Do it. Can we play Sonic Chronicles again?
Fuck no. Don't say that. You don't want that. No one wants that.
I don't want that.
I would like to play Rad, the new game from Double Fine.
Rad.
Yeah, I played it at PAX East this year, and I enjoyed it.
Is that an acronym, or is it just like literally called Rad?
It's called Rad. It's about a character who's exposed to radiation.
Oh, okay, so it's like the unit of measurement.
Yes, and gets superpowers.
I just assumed it was a 1990s skating game.
No, I wish. I can't get a hold of that game.
Oh wow, this game came out like literally 5 days ago.
Yes, it just came out. I would like to play it because it looked cool. It also looked fun. I think it might be a roguelike. Not sure entirely. It is a roguelike?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not very good at roguelikes. Is that going to be a problem?
I don't think so.
Not for me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not for me either, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's 5 days in. We don't know how difficult it was. When I played it at PAX East, it was not especially difficult, but I might have been on a good run.
Yeah, we're on the cutting edge in this podcast.
Yeah.
But it just came out. We don't usually cover games when they're immediately coming out, and that was a game that was on my list of games to watch, and I noticed that it actually came out in a reasonable time frame when I had the ability to pick what we played. And for everyone who's wondering, we will be covering Final Fantasy VIII when it gets re-released, because this is what we've decided to do with our lives.
Yep.
So we will probably, Em and I will probably be live streaming some FF8 coverage around the release, either around the release day or later that week. I will tweet out some information for anyone who's interested, but we will definitely get some commentary out there. So it's coming out, I believe, Tuesday, September 3rd. So we'll take a look at it.
So we can't do it that day because I'm on a trip, but we'll talk about it.
That's why, we're not picking the day, but that's when it comes out. So
yes,
around that time somewhere.
Cool.
All right, cool. So thank you, Pete.
Yeah, will you guys, just as part of my sign-off, will you allow me to be ghoulish and misanthropic for a moment?
Of course.
Sure.
So I would just like to point out that this was a timely choice of picking this game insofar as recently one of the Koch brothers has died. And as far as I'm concerned, he will not be missed, and this game can help show why. He's basically Mr. Sunshine in our world.
Yeah, pretty much. Except instead of getting punted into the sun, he lived a long, healthy, relatively healthy life. Yep. Well, no, I think he dealt with a bout of cancer, but relatively long life.
He prospered to the tune of about $100 billion between him and his brothers.
Yeah, so he did okay, and he died of natural causes.
I think there's a point where you go from doing okay to just like, you've done too much, you should stop. I think once you have like $1 million, that's probably enough. $100 billion, you've just stop.
Yeah,
once you can fund a country, once you can fund a country, you probably, one person's discretion probably shouldn't be what's guiding that money anymore. But it's the end of the show. We don't.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to solve
we don't.
The World Economic
I
Structure
just wanted
here.
to point out that he's awful and dead, and I'm glad.
Yep. and that this game was apropos. Good pick, Pete.
Yeah. Good choice.
Thank you, Em.
Thank you. This game, I was thinking about how the Amazon is burning while I was playing it, so also timely. I don't know.
Pikuniku is the game of the moment, is what we're saying. It's what everyone's talking about.
Yeah. Play this game if you're feeling like the world is on fire, because it is.
Yeah, if you feel like you need to punt some sort of capitalist into the sun, this game lets you do that. Excellent. So, till next time, peace!